All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and we got to talk about it, man. Even though we technically lost the game, I have so many positives to take away from this game, but it was nowhere near perfect. There are a lot of negatives to take away too, but I do feel like the positives outweigh the negatives in the long run. We got to talk about specific units that balled out, specific units that didn't play well, first, second, third string. We're going to talk about literally everybody who played well, who stood out both positively or negatively. We got to talk about it all. And y'all know how I structure my videos. We're going to go start with the quarterbacks, then we're going to go running backs, wide receivers. We're going to go each position group on the way down, starters, backups for each one, all of it. Then we're going to go to the defense, and then we also got to talk about special teams, because our special teams coverage was bad, and then our special teams returning wasn't much better. And it honestly looked like Dax Milne performed better returning wise than Alex Erickson. But then we're gonna get to it. I'm too excited. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. We're gonna get to it. But yeah, man, y'all already know how this goes. I just got done live streaming during the game, so if you know Rico Street Scores, I live stream every game, preseason, regular season, and I'm gonna keep speaking it into existence the postseason as well. And I also hold a post-game live stream after every game as well. So after I'm done with this video, probably by like 5:30, 6 p.m., I'm gonna have a post-game live stream where y'all call in and y'all give y'all opinions on everything that went down, both positive and negative. And if you have any questions, it's a 3-minute timer per person, so I'm gonna try to be as strict with that as possible. Make sure you come in with your thoughts and ideas and opinions organized so that you can get everything you need to say out in 3 minutes. And man, I'm really excited. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification immediately and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Just to let y'all know, I have a Friday show every night where I talk about everything, music, sports, anime, everything going on. We just try to be funny with everything. We just talk about anything that's funny going on, and just period. Doesn't even just have to be about the Commanders at all. And then every Sunday I have a call-in show, which right now, I'm gonna have my post-game live show after this preseason game again around 5:30 p.m., 6 p.m. But I'm also gonna have my Sunday show as well tomorrow. It's at 6 p.m. every Sunday, which will transition into regular season live streams during the game and post-game live streams. So man, this preseason is the last time I'll just have these regular Sunday live streams until we get to the off season. Now we're transitioning to during the game live streams and post-game live streams. So make sure y'all stay tuned for all of them. Make sure you hit the bell next to the subscription button like I already said, so that you can get a notification every time I start up any of these streams. And without further ado, sorry for the long intro, let's get it. All right, so we technically lost the game 23-21, but we really lost to just lack of discipline at the end. And we're going to talk about the individual players like Shaka Toney and Jeremy Reeves when we get to those position groups. But generally, like, I don't really care about us really winning the game for real. It would have been nice. It would have felt good to win the game, especially the way that we came back. I mean, we were down like 20-3 at one point, or 20-10, something like that, something really ugly. And then we just marched down the field repeatedly. And Sam Howell, man, we're going to get to that when we get to the quarterbacks, but I mean, that was really impressive. And again, the comeback was fun. Scott Turner did his thing. Scott Turner was calling his tail off, especially when we got to the third stringers. That 2-point conversion was literally Scott Turner. I mean, of course, Sam Howell delivered the ball. Alex Erickson caught the ball. But Scott Turner got that man wide open with that play design and play call for an easy 2-point conversion. I haven't seen us score a 2-point conversion that easily in years. I'm always worried like, oh man, are we even going to be able to do it? And again, there's context with everything. When we were balling, it was against third stringers with our third stringers, but Sam Howell honestly played well enough to where it looks like he should probably be our direct backup to Carson Wentz. And I'm pretty sure there's some people out there that feels like he needs to go ahead and be our franchise quarterback now. But we're not going to get ahead of ourselves, just like me getting ahead of myself right now. We're not even talking about the quarterback yet. I just want to talk about the general game. I liked what I saw from Scott Turner. I didn't love what I saw from Jack Del Rio, especially all of that soft zone coverage on third down. It just literally looks like a repeat of what we were struggling with the first half of last season, where we just kept coming out in soft zone coverage, allowing third and longs to be converted. And in a lot of those games, except for the Bills game, ended up being close. And if we could have just stopped a couple of those third downs, we would have been straight. But no, Jack Del Rio keeps wanting to run this soft zone when we have all of these man guys. Granted, Benjamin St. Juste wasn't out there today, but Danny Johnson is better in man coverage. William Jackson is definitely better in man coverage. Kendall Fuller is probably like our only important corner that's like a supposed starter or even a direct backup that's better in zone coverage. Everybody else are man covers are better in man coverage. It's kind of weird, but we're going to talk about them when we get to the DBs as well. But again, just generally, just wanted to give y'all some interesting stats. I mean, of course, the score at one point was 20-6. That's what it was. And then we went on to score 15 unanswered points to take the lead by 1 point with a 2-point conversion. Love that Riverboat run and Scott Turner play call. I want to be that aggressive in general. Not specifically like a 2-point conversion in that situation. You tie that up in a regular season game. But I do want us to be more aggressive just in general. I want us to, like, if we're up 10 in the third quarter, keep our foot on their neck, still keep throwing deep bombs and try to go up 20 something. I don't want to be in nail biters all the way to the end every game. If we're playing against a team that we're straight up better than and we get like early 10-point lead, go ahead and blow it up. Go and score more points. Stop trying to just run the ball and run the clock out and get away by the skin of our teeth, man. I want to just run it up on people, honestly. And so that was a little inspirational to see that 2-point conversion, even though it is a completely different situation for what I'm talking about. But just overall aggression, I want to see more of that. And then just overall team stats, we were 8 for 14 on third downs. They were 11 for 18. So that's pretty straight across the board. Our backup defense was definitely better against third downs than our first team defense, but it's whatever. We went 2 for 2 on fourth downs, which is also really interesting. They went 0 for 1. We had more total yards than them, 350 to 288. We had 121 rushing yards to their 93. We had 229 passing yards to their 195. Like, statistically, it didn't look that bad, but we had 2 turnovers. They had 0. That's the big thing right there. In time of possession, we beat them there with 31 minutes, 12 seconds to their 28 minutes, 48 seconds. And then we also had more penalties for more yards, of course, 6 for 45 to their 4 for 30. And without those last 2, we would have won the game and we would have been even on penalties. So there you go. That's what makes a difference. 2 turnovers and 2 more penalties and 15 more penalty yards than the other team. That'll do it. That'll literally do it in a real game. But I've been talking enough about just randomness. Let's get to the quarterbacks. And starting with the starters, of course, Carson Wentz, very encouraging game. Granted, he did nothing spectacular, but he looked like a veteran. And the biggest takeaway I take from this for Carson Wentz, again, nothing was really bad. Nothing was really good. He had a couple of really good rhythm throws, which I'm really happy about to see that he has some chemistry with the receivers. And he had that one underthrow against Terry McLaurin where, like I said it, even before the ball was fully out of his hand, I was like, why is he throwing it that way? Like, that's what I was thinking. And then while the ball was in the air, I said out loud, like, why did he throw it like that? He didn't even step into it. He kind of just flicked it. And it was really impressive that it still went that far down the field off of a flick. But I feel like if he would have stepped into the throw, it wouldn't have been underthrown. Terry McLaurin would have had an easy touchdown and the stadium would have went ballistic. My stream would have been ballistic. I would have went ballistic. It would have been crazy. But it was underthrown and it was technically a pass interference that they didn't call, but it's whatever. But other than that, Carson Wentz looked pretty good today. It was nothing spectacular, nothing great, but the main reason I'm highly encouraged by this game is that I finally saw Carson Wentz consistently, and that's not a word you really hear when you're describing Carson Wentz in general, but he consistently took the correct play, the smart play, and the safe play. Carson Wentz is known to be a guy that has really high highs and really low lows. Remember that Saturday night practice at FedEx Field? He looked terrible some throws, and then he looked like a Hall of Famer some throws. But today, he honestly kind of looked like a game manager, and the reason I'm so happy about that is because it sounds like Scott Turner is actually getting to him. It seems like everywhere else Carson Wentz went, maybe coaches tried to tell him to play it safe, take the safe play, take the layup every now and then, and maybe he just didn't listen. I don't know what happened with those other teams. But when he got here, Scott Turner clearly said in an interview soon after we traded for him that we're going to do what we can to get him to take the safer plays, to do more check downs, to throw it out of bounds if he has to, not to force the issue and get any unnecessary mind-boggling turnovers, just unnecessary stuff. Today, he played it safe. He literally had like an Alex Smith-like game, to be completely honest with you, which of course we brought Carson Wentz in to be way better than that. We brought him in to be explosive and all of that, but I'm really encouraged by the fact that he didn't do all of the silly stuff that we've seen him do on other teams, and that we even saw him do for the first couple of weeks of training camp. This past week, he figured it out. The last real bad performance he's had of training camp was that Saturday night practice. This whole past week, he's been on point and looked more like what he looked like today, which was pretty accurate. Now, granted, there's still things for him to fix, but I'm very encouraged by this game because I just didn't think we would ever see a Carson Wentz that would take the safe play and be somewhat of a game manager. Again, you expect better out of him, but I just didn't think Scott Turner could even convince this guy to play like that before. And I feel like you could honestly win games like that. If our defense balls out, you saw the run game, and we're going to get to Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson. Oh, my Lord, that hurt. But, like, you can win games like that. Now, I think it's going to take us to attack underneath, run the ball really well, and for Carson Wentz to basically throughout this game what he did for us to open up the explosive plays down the field. And I think once we do that and teams become afraid of everything we're doing underneath, depth of 1,000 cuts, we just keep hitting them for short intermediate stuff over and over again, the deep stuff is gonna open up. Eventually the safety is gonna have to come down and help, and that's when you hit Terry McLaurin deep, Jahan Dotson deep, Curtis Samuel deep, De'Ami Brown deep, all of these guys. We have so many options. And then real quick, Taylor Heineke, just mid. I was so happy when Sam Howell came out. I was so ready. Taylor Heineke, granted, it wasn't a good day, but my main thing was we already know what we got in Taylor Heineke. He's not this guy with all of this raw athleticism and raw talent that if you just keep giving him more snaps, maybe we'll find something. No, Taylor Heineke is who he's gonna be. And it's not necessarily bad, but it was time to see Sam Howell as soon as possible, and man, the stream went crazy when Sam Howell came out because Taylor Heineke, honestly, I think he only had one drive, maybe two, and I was expecting him to be out there well into the third quarter. When Sam Howell came out, boy, the stream was like, yes, sir, let's get it, and he did not disappoint. 9 for 16 with 145 yards does not do him justice. Granted, he was a little inaccurate on a couple of throws. I vividly remember 3 throws that he just completely missed, like one to the end zone to, I believe it was Curtis Hodges, a couple to receivers, like one to the left doing an out route or something like that. I remember some inaccurate throws, but for the most part, Sam Howell balled out. If we're talking about a rookie report card, every rookie quarterback that played this weekend, he has by far been the best, I think. And y'all know Malik Willis, I'm a huge Malik Willis fan. He's probably already my favorite player in the league for very biased reasons, of course. But he made some mistakes. Granted, you look at the highlights, you only look at the positive plays. You're like, Malik Willis balled out. But if you actually looked at what he did play to play, he had some passes that should have been intercepted. Matt Corral wasn't terrible, but Sam Howell was way better than him. Ritter looked better than I expected, but Sam Howell was better than him. Desmond Ritter played against some backups. Willis is probably the only one that played with and against starters for an extended period of time. And Matt Corral clearly went against the backups because it was Sam Howell versus Matt Corral. And y'all know Matt Corral was my boy in college as well. I really liked him. But Sam Howell objectively completely won the Rookie Bowl this week. If we're looking at all the rookie quarterbacks, he outperformed all of them. I mean, the 2 touchdown runs were amazing. The one where he was scrambling, saw nothing. All he had was a linebacker one-on-one out in space, juked him out his socks. How you pump fake 8 yards down the field and the linebacker fall for it? All I know is can't be me. I wasn't raised to get my ankles broken like that. I'm sorry. It couldn't be me. Couldn't be a burgundy and gold linebacker. That's all I know. I'm sorry, Panthers, but y'all, your linebacker went through it on that play. Sam Howell, that's an ESPN top 10 play right there. I'm not gonna lie. And then even the other run, I really like the fact, like, he showed some running back nuance there to kind of fall in backwards to get the touchdown instead of just forcing it forward where you're not getting it. Kind of spin, lean back, and get it easier, not take a big hit. I liked what I saw from Sam Howell on those 2 plays. And then throwing the ball, he was throwing dipping dots for the most part. Again, he was inaccurate a couple of times, but for the most part, he was throwing dipping dots. And the backup offensive line was, I'm not going to say horrendous. There was some plays they gave Sam Howell a good pocket. There was sometimes they had good running lanes for Jared Patterson and Jonathan Williams. But for the most part, that offensive line was trying to Willie Beeman my boy from Any Given Sunday, the way they did my boy Jamie Foxx, bruh. It was bad. Sam Howell was out here having to duck under people, bottled up, somehow magically coming out of the Looney Tunes dirt pile, the cloud, with all of the random punches and stuff. He escaped that and would make a play, and that takes me to my last point with Sam Howell. I love the fact that he scrambles to throw. He's not scrambling to run. That touchdown was like, okay, y'all gonna leave me out here one-on-one against a third string linebacker. I gotta do him filthy. What do you mean? Like, I know I naturally run the throw, but I had to kill him right there. You seen what happened. So, but the rest of the game, whenever he's scrambling, he's looking like, okay, let me find this guy. And I remember at least two or three throws where he's scrambling, easily could have took off for, say, like maybe a 3-yard gain, maybe a little bit more, but he decides to throw it, and now it's like a 15+ yarder. And I mean, that's my biggest takeaway. He looked like a veteran. He was accurate. He was going through his reads, his progressions. He did not look like a raw 5th-round quarterback out there at all. He looked more like the guy that probably would have went first overall in the draft if he would have came out a year sooner. I mean, I'm strongly impressed. I already been saying it. If y'all been watching my videos, I've been saying for weeks that Sam Howell's probably going to go out there, especially against backups, and ball out. But he even surpassed my expectations of that, man. He looked really good out there. The 2 sacks he took for 11 yards were not his fault at all. That was the offensive line letting him down. Again, they were doing them like my boy Jamie Foxx and any given Sunday, boy, I swear. Running back wise, of course, Antonio Gibson fumbled. I'm not going to stay on that too long because plain and simple, you got to be better. Y'all know anybody that's from like Atlanta, the Atlanta metro area, especially like on our team, Montez Sweat, Jamin Davis, Antonio Gibson, I'm going to be on their neck when they perform poorly. I'm also going to be their biggest fan, of course, but when they perform poorly, I'm going to be the first one to call them out on it, and I'm going to be the harshest ones. And Antonio Gibson really disappointed me today. I was really upset. If I was on the sideline, I might have fought him, because that was just like, it was way too quick. There's no fatigue excuse. It's the first preseason game. You only got like 2 carries, if that, before then. Literally no excuse. Yeah, he had 4 carries total for 2 yards, and then that 4th one was when he fumbled. There was no fatigue. There was no I'm beat up. He's supposedly fully healthy. There was literally no excuse. You're falling to the ground. Instead of holding on to it with 2 hands and just falling, he was trying to extend his left hand, I guess, keep himself up or to stop his fall, I don't know, and then he falling with the ball only in one hand. Come on now, you already have this stigma of having fumble issues. We're trying to go into this new year, new slate. You had 2 fumbles in practice just last week. We're trying to put it in the past. We're trying to forget it, but you keep reminding us of this fumble problem. The thing that's really crazy to me is that his fumble problem wasn't even this bad his rookie season, when he was the most raw, switching from receiver to running back. And now that he's becoming a better running back, having better vision, better patience, better cutting and things like that, now he's fumbling more, and I'm just not understanding. They're literally running fumbling drills just for him, and he's still fumbling. I'm extremely disappointed. There's really nothing else to say beyond that. Brian Robinson came in, stole the show. 6 carries for 26 yards. It felt like it was way more than that. That drive where they just gave him the keys, he was amazing. The first guy never brought him down, except for the one time somebody just held onto his legs forever, and then eventually he fell. Other than that, he was either making the first guy miss or the first guy wish that he didn't even try to tackle him, just running him over, or arm tackles wasn't working, which is what we expected. I like the fact that he caught 2 passes out of the backfield. Again, it was when Carson Wentz was taking the safe play, which I really appreciate from him. He ended up with 2 catches for 15 yards. It was beautiful, man. He caught everything thrown towards him. He made it look smooth. I never saw him bobble the ball. You would think he was a receiving back his whole time at Alabama. It's just, man, Brian Robinson's one of the 3 most impressive players today. Sam Howell's 1. Brian Robinson's got to be 2, at least out of the top 5, man. He looked really good. 6 carries for 26 yards does not do him justice. If you didn't get a chance to see the game, you got to watch it. And then he had the touchdown to end it. It was so beautiful. It looked like a Disney movie, honestly. The fact that Antonio Gibson fumbled, got benched, Brian Robinson came in immediately, and then they had that drive that they had with Scott Turner calling the right plays, Carson Wentz making the right throws for the most part, and Brian Robinson making the right reads and running people over, and then to end it with that touchdown, it literally felt like a Disney movie. It was amazing. And then Jonathan Williams and Jared Patterson were going at it. Granted, Jonathan Williams had 31 yards to Jared Patterson's 15. He also had 2 more carries, but they both look good out there, and I think that's a really tough competition, because Jonathan Williams looked really good when he was in, and I was like, oh man, it's dark for Jared Patterson. Then here comes Jared Patterson looking really good when he came in. I was like, wait a minute, okay, we have a real running back competition for that 4th spot. It's crazy. We have depth. That's why I'm saying it's a lot of positives to take from this, because even though we lost the game, and even though there are things to complain about, and we're going to get to them when we get to those position groups, overall, guys look pretty good today. And now, going to receiving, Terry McLaurin was uncoverable. If Carson Wentz would have got him that ball on the deep bomb, his stats would have looked way better, because he technically only had 1 reception for 16 yards with 2 targets. But again, one of those 2 targets, he caught one, and the other one was an underthrown ball by Carson Wentz that really was a pass interference. Another play, Terry McLaurin had a holding call called against the guy defending him. He just completely left the guy. They left him on the island. I don't know why a team will leave Terry McLaurin on the island, but it was one-on-one. He knew he was beat, so he just held on to Terry McLaurin for dear life, and Terry McLaurin did his thing. He impacted the game, even though he only technically received 2 targets. Jahan Dotson, I'm going to have to look at the all-22 footage to see what really happened. I remember that one throw that was thrown towards him. Carson Wentz, I don't know if you can argue it was a slight overthrow, but honestly, I feel like it was more so Jahan Dotson has to do a better job of tracking the ball deep down the field. It kind of came over his shoulder. He was like this, and he kind of lost it. It went past him. I think if he didn't slow down, he probably would have been there to get it, and we would have been talking about how Carson Wentz just threw a dime to Jahan Dotson. We would have flipped our wigs. We would have been celebrating like crazy, but I had to watch the all-22 because Jahan Dotson was probably open more than he actually was targeted, so it's hard to really grade him. Then Mark Michelle, I'm surprised he didn't get the ball more because he's the guy that probably is leading our team in touchdowns this offseason, so I wanted to see him ball out, but he was only targeted twice, but he did have that one catch for 17 yards that made me really happy. Dax Milne made the most of what he got. His two catches for 30 yards were big, a lot of yak on them. Really big. And then Alex Erickson led our team in reception yards with 2 receptions with 56 yards. Now, granted, a lot of it was yards after catch, and then technically he did have that 2-point conversion catch, which doesn't count in the stat sheet. But he looked pretty good out there as well, and I thought he was just going to be a primary punt returner, and granted, it was against backups, and granted, Scott Turner did a really good job of getting them open, but he impressed. I don't know how much to take away from him or to take away from Scott Turner. Either way, Alex Erickson looked good, and he's making it difficult to cut him, because we're going to get to it in special teams, but I thought after Alex Erickson looked so bad in punt returns, and Dax Milne came out and gave us at least a little bit of a spark, I was like, oh yeah, Alex Erickson is done. Dax Milne is your primary punt returner, and we can use that roster spot for something else, another tight end or whatever. But then Alex Erickson leading our team in yards and out here doing his thing. Granted, a lot of it was actually quite a bit of Sam Howell too, improvising that one really long catch and run by Alex Erickson, but he still did his thing. I'm not trying to take credit away from him at all. Kyrie McGowan had 1 catch for 27 yards. JD McKissick looked really good out there, juked somebody out of their socks with a spin move. It looked beautiful. It literally looked like he hit the B button, man. It was beautiful. 1 catch for 15 yards. Like I already said, Brian Robinson had 2 catches for 15 as well. Curtis Samuel, this is big. He had 2 catches for 14 yards. Both of his targets were caught, and they were all pretty accurate passes from Carson Wentz that I was really happy about. Like rhythm throws, like they've been throwing to each other for years now. That made me really optimistic about Curtis Samuel's chemistry with Carson Wentz. And then the most important thing was the fact that he was able to take on hits and to get right back up like nothing happened. He's fully healthy. He's ready to go. I think it's time to stop ramping him up, ramping him down, ramping him up. He looked good to go today. Let him play, man. Let him practice. Let him do all of that because he was able to take on hits like it was nothing, and he provided something out of the backfield that really helped us. He was able to get open underneath because the Panthers were worried about Jahan and Terry, and I think that's how it should be. De'Ami Brown was forced the ball for like a series, like one quick little back-to-back plays. He had 3 targets, 2 catches for 14 yards. Looked better than I thought he would because he didn't even do anything deep. He was getting relatively open underneath, and I was proud of him for that. And then the tight ends, man. With Logan Thomas, John Bates, and Cole Turner not playing today, and I don't know where Samus Reyes was because I saw him in uniform, but I don't ever remember seeing him go out there. Armani Rogers and Curtis Hodges made plays, and they made the most of what they got opportunity-wise. Now, granted, Armani Rogers started off a little soggy. He dropped that first really good ball by Carson Wentz. I think it was Carson Wentz's first passing attempt as a Commander in the preseason, so that was a really interesting moment, and it was a really good ball by Carson Wentz, but Armani Rogers should have caught it. He should have came down with it. Maybe if Carson Wentz would have thrown it a little bit further, Armani Rogers wouldn't have had to deal with the DB's helmet because he had to kind of reach like this to get it. If it was up here, Armani Rogers probably catches it, but it's still no excuse. You got to catch that. Then the next play, Armani Rogers is open for an easy gain, schemed open by Scott Turner, but then the next catch that Armani Rogers gets is amazing. He's against Xavier Woods, a starting corner, not even a linebacker, a starting corner in the NFL, and he separated against him to get us a first down on 3rd down to keep the drive alive. It was beautiful. He literally hit him and then came back and then had like 2-3 yards of separation again against an NFL corner. They have to know the coaching staff has to notice that. Even though he didn't have a perfect day, you got to notice when a tight end can get that open against a starting NFL corner. Armani Rogers and Curtis Hodges were out there with the starters today with all of the guys injured. And I thought it was interesting because y'all know Armani Rogers is my boy, but I thought they were higher on Curtis Hodges than Armani Rogers. But Armani Rogers was out there with the starters. Again, literally first drive of the game, he was the one getting all the targets. Carson Wentz threw the ball to towards Armani Rogers 3 times before he even targeted Terry McLaurin or Jahan Dotson or Curtis Samuel. It was kind of crazy, and I was really happy to see him get the opportunities, and I feel like he did a good enough job to continue getting opportunities, even though I'm not sure if it was good enough today to make the team. But to be able to separate against Xavier Woods is amazing as a tight end, especially a really raw tight end that just switched from quarterback to tight end literally just a couple of months ago. Like, that's ridiculous. And again, Curtis Hodges, he has some pretty good blocks out there today. That's really noteworthy. That's the biggest thing I take from him. I like that one play call. It didn't work, but Scott Turner tried to hurry up and get him the ball at goal line, just a quick throw, and I guess he was hoping he'd be able to catch the ball, and then him being so tall, big, and heavy, just kind of lean back and fall into the end zone. But the Panther DB did a good job of staying low and pushing them back. And so, of course, like, you know, and so the ball ended up being placed at the goal line rather than it being a touchdown. But I'm not mad at it. I like the play call. I like that opportunity that Scott Turner gave Curtis Hodges. He wasn't able to get it done. Maybe if the ball got there like slightly sooner, even though I don't know how much sooner you could have gotten it. It was literally hike, throw. Don't even look at nothing else. He caught it, and they were hoping with him being way bigger than the guy, he'd be able to just muscle his way in. He wasn't able to, but again, he has some pretty good plays out there, especially blocking wise. And that's really it for the tight ends. I really didn't notice Eli Wolf out there much, so I'm not surprised about that. And then offensive line, one of the MVPs of this game. If you had to rank top 5 players or position groups, if you would have put the O-line as one player, the starting O-line, at least, that third string was ugly. The second string was pretty good. Taylor Heineke had a lot of time, and they had a lot of run lanes. But that first team offensive line was really good, and it's even more impressive that they didn't have their starting center or starting right guard. Chase Roulier and Trey Turner didn't play, so we had second stringers technically starting with the ones. We had third stringers having to step up and play with the twos, and both of those units looked really good. Then when we got to our third stringers, and it was technically fourth stringers out there with them, because again, depth chart just had to keep moving up with Chase Roulier and Trey Turner going. Guys were playing higher than their depth chart spots are supposed to be, but that starting O-line was amazing. Carson Wentz had so much time. Running lanes were opening up beautifully. I'm so proud of that first team O-line. I mean, I never doubted them, because John Moscow is John Moscow, arguably our best positional coach on the team, arguably our best coach, period. But I was still really happy to see them ball out. Now, going to the defensive line, they looked good all the way up until like this middle where we were transitioning from the second team to the third team, and then at the end they were balling. I mean, Shaka Toney, besides the penalty, 80% of that rush was really good. Showed Ben, but then he went up too high, and then he ripped Matt Corral's helmet off, which led to them ended up kicking that game-winning field goal. But like, he looked good at times, and overall the defensive line, Casey Toohill, besides getting bullied on one goal line running play where he was just getting pushed out the way, even the backup defensive lineman looked good. James Smith-Williams looked really good out there with the starters. Granted, he wasn't Chase Young, but it wasn't like he was far off, and it's not like, oh man, we need Chase Young back as soon as possible. We really want Chase Young back as soon as possible, but James Smith-Williams definitely held his own and made a couple of plays. And again, the starting defensive line dominated. Jonathan Allen had a couple of really good plays. I don't remember noticing Montez Sweat or Deron Payne, but they did their thing as well. They were getting pressure. They didn't have any real splash plays, but they did their thing. And then the backups again, Casey Toohill, Fedarian Mathis came out and did his thing. He was stopping the run so well. Didn't really see much from him pass protection wise, but he was eating up double teams and single-handedly stopping the run at play at times, man. It was ridiculous. So I'm really happy about the defensive line. And then linebacker wise, don't really remember noticing Jamin Davis out there, but that's kind of a good and a bad thing. One thing is he didn't shine, but another thing is he wasn't out there making mistakes. Cause you gotta appreciate what Jamin Davis does, even though he didn't shine, by the fact that when David Mayo came out there, we noticed him, and not in a good way, in coverage getting killed. We noticed David Mayo plenty. I mean, he got targeted with like 2 or 3 straight plays. They were like, oh wow, this guy sucks at coverage. We're just gonna keep throwing it to whoever he's covering, and it kept working for first downs. It was bad. But first team wise, again, didn't really notice Jamin Davis, which is a good and a bad thing. Cole Holcomb did his thing. I liked him a lot against the run. And then outside of David Mayo, Milo Eifler made a couple of plays. Trey Walker and Nathan Gary came out and were doing their thing, bruh. They came out there and were not playing that last quarter. In the fourth quarter, them guys were making plays, rushing the passer, making plays against the run. They seemed like they were everywhere, man. So it sounds like we may have better linebacker depth than we think. And the way Nathan Gary and Trey Walker played today, I mean, David Mayo, I don't know, man. And then secondary-wise, I'm going to have to watch the All-22 to really judge them, because it just seemed more like a Jack Del Rio problem than the actual individual secondary players problem, especially starting wise. And granted, Benjamin St. Juste wasn't out there, but Kendall Fuller got beat bad one time in zone coverage, which is supposed to be his expertise, for a touchdown. But other than that, from what I saw, he was actually pretty straight. William Jackson never heard his name called. That's a great thing. That's what you're supposed to do. Shut down the whole third of the field like he did the second half of last season, and our defense should be really good. And then Cameron Curl, just doing Cameron Curl things. Bobby McCain made a couple of plays. I was proud of him. He definitely looked like he was more so himself from the second half of the year than the first half, so that's good to hear. But again, I mean, we just allowed too many third downs converted. We allowed too many plays in the secondary, and again, it was that soft coverage. I blame Jack Del Rio more than anything else, but at the same time, you got to make plays. Kendall Fuller was in position to win in that zone coverage, but he just got beat, so that wasn't Jack Del Rio's fault, but I think overall it was. And Danny Johnson as well, getting beat after beat after beat, but then he had a really good pass breakup later, and I was surprised because Danny Johnson was a strong contributor in that 4-game win streak we had last year. He was covering very well starting in the slot, but today he was getting beat repeatedly, but then he made up kind of for it at the end with a really good pass breakup. It doesn't cancel out all of the times he got beat, but it was pretty straight. And then Derek Forrest was around the ball quite a bit. I noticed him flash a little bit. Wasn't like a spectacular performance, but it was encouraging. And then Percy Butler, man, I've been hearing great things about him. I mean, all throughout Twitter, I guess people that were at the game that could actually view the entire film, they basically had first person all 22. I kept hearing nothing but great things about Percy Butler locking up everybody he covered, literally just erasing people from the play. From us watching the game through the TV, through like NFL Plus or whatever stream, we couldn't really see Percy Butler. But I'm gonna need that all 22 footage, because the way people are talking about Percy Butler, it sounds like we got one. I mean, he was excellent in man coverage from what I'm hearing. And remember, he's a free safety. And remember, Chris Sims, when we drafted him, said he's the best pure free safety out of the class with the most range, and he also has coverage ability. And so it sounds like he showed a lot of that coverage ability. I also saw a couple of plays with him as a safety. I mean, one time that David Mayo got beat bad, Percy Butler was there to make the tackle, and it wasn't technically his responsibility, but he stepped up and made a nice tackle before it became worse. And you got to appreciate a safety that can make a tackle in the open field, because we've seen Troy Apke whiff on them in 15-yard gains turning to 40-yard touchdowns. So shouts out to Percy Butler for that. Jeremy Reeves had a couple of good plays, especially in special teams, but then he also had one, I believe it was a penalty or a bad play, but other than that, he was straight. And then Steven Parker, Mr. number 16. People kept asking all throughout the stream while we were watching the game, who is number 16? And he was making plays against the run. He was covering people. He was locking people up. I loved what I saw from Steven Parker, who on our depth chart right now is our only fourth string safety. Every other safety, strong or free, is at the furthest third string. Steven Parker is the furthest down in the depth chart, and you could argue he definitely made the most plays out of our secondary today, and you could argue he was one of our most impressive players, period, out of the entire team. And he's technically a safety, not a corner, but he may be this year's Torrey McTyer, which is really interesting to me. And then after that, I mean, I'm gonna have to watch the all 22 film to see what a lot of other guys did. I mean, Devontae Bowsby had a good play. I remember that. He got hurt, then came back in, had a play. DeJuan Neal also had a play from what I remember, but I don't really remember seeing him that much. And Cam Sims, just to go back real quick, because we're about to go to special teams, he wasn't targeted on offense from what I remember, but he was down there in special teams coverage. He was the first 1-1 play when they actually just called a fair catch. But I've noticed that Cam Sims was the first one down there, and that's why he's a roster lock. No matter what you feel like he is as a receiver, special teams wise, he's that guy. Now, special teams wise, I would say the least impressive unit was special teams easily. If we're talking about offense, defense, special teams was easily the worst. I mean, Tressway did his thing as usual, but our special teams coverage after he kicked it was terrible, especially on kickoffs when Joey Sly was kicking. Speaking of Joey Sly, he missed a PAT. He never had to kick a field goal because our offense was really good, especially in the red zone, really efficient. But he missed the only PAT. And this guy is known for kicking 55-yarders, so I don't know what's going on, jitterbugs, whatever, but you better fix it. And then, I mean, Cameron Cheeseman, long snapper, we didn't have any issues there with any exchanges, so that's good to hear. And then returner-wise, Alex Erickson was very unimpressive. But again, he contributed so much as a receiver, he may have saved his job. Because if he didn't contribute that much as a receiver, it probably would have been Dax Milne as the primary returner. Because speaking of Dax Milne, he looked pretty good returning the ball. Nothing, well, not even good, decent. He just looked like an upgrade over Alex Erickson, at least. It wasn't anything good or spectacular, but at least it was better than what Alex Erickson was doing. At least it was somewhat of a spark and at least some positive yards. I mean, Alex Erickson did have that one punt return where he broke a bunch of tackles, but all he did was go backward, if anything. But Dax Milne, you know, as of right now, he looks like the better punt returner, but we'll see. Alex Erickson was literally signed to literally do just that, and he looked really good doing it for other teams, so I don't know why he looked so bad doing it for us, but it's whatever. And that's really it, special teams-wise. I mean, other guys, I think Kyrick McGowan had one kick return play, and I don't think Jared Patterson ever had a kick return, but he's technically third-string kick returner. But yeah, man, that's really it. That's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like if you liked it, if you learned anything. Make sure you pull up to the post-game live stream. Make sure you pull up every week to me live streaming during the games and having a post-game live stream where y'all call in after the games like we're about to do after I get this video edited and uploaded and all of that, man. I really appreciate y'all. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now. Shouts out to everybody that pulled up to the stream. We were super deep in there. It was so fun. Shouts out to everybody that donated. Shouts out to everybody that left a like. I love the conversation in there. Whether I agree or disagree with you, I love all of the commotion in the chat. That's what I'm here for. That's how I like to watch football. So I appreciate y'all all pulling up and showing support. I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.